Hello, everyone. My name is Renaud Daniels, Senior Director of Multimedia and Event Sponsorship Sales. I hope you enjoyed the first day of the Entrepreneur Summit. I can assure you, you will find day two to be equally as enlightening. Our 25th Entrepreneur Summit is such an important conference to our team at Black Enterprise, who have worked tirelessly to make it happen, and to you, our audience of over 3,000 attendees. But I must say that this achievement is not done in a vacuum or without a lot of support. None of this would be possible without the support of our sponsors. With that, I would like to take a few moments to thank our sponsors that truly made this summit come together in the way that it has. Beginning with our title sponsor, Nationwide. Nationwide kicked things off with the Fireside Chat Behind the Curtain with the greatest showman, Nick Cannon, and building wealth as you build your biz. Our presenting sponsor, JP Morgan Chase, hosted yesterday's main stage conversation, Investing in Racial Equity, Will Corporate America Level the Playing Field for Black Business? Our platinum sponsor, Microsoft, hosted Power Up, Partner to Innovate and Grow Your Tech Business. To our corporate sponsors, Amazon Web Services, Comcast, and Remy Martin. Amazon Web Services will host this afternoon's session, Stay Ready, Preparing for Any Crisis. Comcast will host Money to Grow, Fund Your Dream. And please make sure you join us for our virtual happy hour hosted by Remy Martin. Please join me in thanking the 2020 Black Enterprise Entrepreneurs Summit sponsors.
It seems like just yesterday when Byron Allen was a skinny 18-year-old stand-up comedian making his television debut on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. To this day, the youngest comic to ever earn that spot. More than 4 decades later, he has developed into the 59-year-old media mogul and multi-billion-dollar power player who gave an interview with The Hollywood Reporter where he was asked to voice his ultimate ambition. His answer, I'd like to own CNN, and I will. At Black Enterprise, we know his audacious goal is possible. We have charted every step of Byron Allen's rise and the expansion of a global media empire that encompasses broadcast and cable television, motion pictures, and digital and streaming platforms. He's the force behind Entertainment Studios, which owns 10 24-hour HD television networks, including the Weather Channel. In 2016, he purchased The Griot, a digital news platform devoted to providing compelling entertainment, news, and lifestyle content for African Americans that currently boasts more than 20 million annual visitors. And last year, the visionary entrepreneur formed Allen Media Group, LLC, which includes 4 Big Four stations across the country. There are other historic multi-million-dollar acquisitions and partnerships. Byron Allen is never standing still. As an outspoken critic of industry racism, he has earned respect and headlines for challenging major institutions, their discriminatory practices, and the broad implications for African Americans. It is my pleasure to welcome to the 2020 BE Entrepreneurs Conference the founder, chairman, and CEO of Entertainment Studios and Allen Media Group, LLC, Mr. Byron Allen.
Thank you. I'm so happy to hear that my mom, I didn't realize my mother was writing for Black Enterprise, so that's amazing.
Yes, as I was reading this, I didn't know who they were talking about, but nonetheless, I'm happy to have you on, my friend. But no, on a serious note, Byron, this has been quite a journey these past 40 years for you in the entertainment business. For those who don't know, who are not old enough to know, you weren't born on third base, rounding third and coming home. You started, with fairly humble beginnings. But I'd love to be able for you to share again the ingenuity you used, number one, to become the youngest comedian ever to appear on the Johnny Carson show. What got you involved in that? I know you were writing and doing other things, but please share the story with the audience and then we'll get into the business things and how you propelled moving from being a comedian into the business person you are.
Well, you know, I'm very blessed. My mother, she got pregnant with me when she was 16 years old and had me 17 days after her 17th birthday. And I was born in Detroit, Michigan. I just had a very good childhood. It was a great, you know, Midwest, you know, childhood. And, you know, it was that blue collar, you know, my dad worked at Ford Motor Company for over 30 years. And my granddaddy, my mom's side worked at, you know, Great Lakes Steel for over 30 years. These guys, I don't think they ever called in a day sick. And they were always trying to figure out how to put 36 hours into a 24-hour day. So I saw that great American blue collar work ethic, which always, you know, stuck with me. These were, you know, simply great Americans, hardworking Americans. My mother and I came out to LA, summer of '68, thought it was going to be a 2-week vacation. And it ended up being a forever decision up until this point, right? Here in Los Angeles. And it was a 2-week vacation, and we ended up staying on a lot of sofas and floors and spare bedrooms when we could find them. And we did that for a while, you know, the sofa surfing for about a couple of years. And finally we got a place. You know, my mom, you know, beautiful, she's brilliant. And she went to UCLA film school. And because she was at UCLA studying to get her master's degree in cinema TV production, I used to go out there with her, you know, to NBC, and she was able to get in the door because she asked them if they had well, first of all, she went to NBC and asked them for a job. They said no. And she asked a very important question that changed our lives forever, which is, do you have an intern program? And they said no. And then what changed everything for us is when she asked, will you start one with me? Can I work for you for free? And that was a very important question. And it was a great answer. And they said yes. And because she got a job out there at NBC, I was able to go out there with her. And as a child, I was exposed to a lot. And I was able to see something that I didn't know exists, that exposure is everything, especially when you're a young kid. At that point, I was 12 or 13 years old. And I would go and I would watch Johnny Carson tape The Tonight Show. And then I would walk across the hall and watch Red Fox tape Sanford and Son. And then I go down the hall and I would watch Freddie Prinze do Cheek on the Man. Then I go down the hall again and I would watch Flip Wilson do the Flip Wilson Show. And I watched Bob Hope do his specials. And I just went from studio to studio to studio. And what a wonderful way to go through life, making people laugh and making television. So that was it. I had that. I remember I felt like the hair went up on my arms. I knew exactly what I wanted to do with my life. And I just started performing at the Comedy Store when I was 13, 14 years old. It was summer of '75 or so, I believe it was, '74, '75. And I was at the Comedy Store and a young man saw me perform one of my first or second nights. I got there at like 9 a.m. to sign up because I wanted to make sure I was able to get on. I signed up, I got there at 9 a.m, they let me on and I just sat on the curb waiting for them to open the front doors and open the club and let us in. And so I sat there until about 7:30 at night, and they let me on at about 8 o'clock, and I performed for about 4 people and 240 chairs. And I got a few giggles from those 4 people, and I kept coming back. And this young guy saw me named Wayne Klein, and Wayne Klein asked me, who wrote those jokes? And I said, I did. And he says, I know somebody that may be interested in that material. Can I get your phone number? I said, sure. And I got a call from a guy, and he says, hey, is this Byron? I said, yeah. He goes, this is Jimmy J.J. Walker. I go, wow. And Jimmy was hotter than the sun because he was on Good Times. This is, you know, and this was the mid '70s, and he was Kid Dynamite.
Right.
And he said, my man Wayne Klein says you're funny. And if my man Wayne Klein says you're funny, then you must be funny. Would you like to write with us? And I go, well, let me ask my mom. He goes, oh, look at this. He's got to ask his mom. And so fortunately, my mother said yes. And I went to Jimmy's apartment and I walked in there and he's sitting there with Jay Leno, who had just, you know, Jay Leno was sleeping in his car, and David Letterman, who had just driven out from Indianapolis in a red pickup truck because he didn't think he was going to make it. And he wanted to be able to get in his pickup truck and drive home. And Wayne Klein and Marty Nadler, who went on to write and produce Laverne and Shirley and Happy Days. And I was a kid. And I got 25 bucks for every joke I was able to come up with and sell to Jimmy Walker and Jay Leno and David Letterman. You know, they were sitting right next to me and in Jimmy Walker's apartment in his living room in the mid 70s. And they were getting 200 bucks a week. And I just kept writing and performing and performing and writing. And they offered me the Tonight Show when I was 17. And I turned it down because I didn't want to do the show, get offers and not be able to accept them because I was still in high school. And fortunately, they offered it to me a second time, and I did it a couple of weeks before I graduated from high school. And it went well, and that got me a show called Real People. And Real People was a big hit, did really well. Real People ended up going straight to, you know, top 10, top 5, number 1, and changed the face of television because it was the granddaddy, the original reality show, and just changed the face of television forever.
Yes, let me ask you, Byron, because you have and I appreciate because you framed it so well in regards to where you came from, how you got into that, what have you. But I want to explore a little bit how you went from being a comedian for a long period of time, working your way through the business, what have you, ultimately saying, you know what, it's time for me to flip, because a lot of people want to get in front of a camera, right? Not a whole lot of people want to get behind the camera or get on the business side of things. So there must have been something that you saw, probably some person you saw who was on the business side of things. When did that transition take place? When was that aha moment when you decided, you know what, this is great, thank you very much. It's nice being recognized from time to time, but with all due respect, I want to get on this other side because that's where true wealth building takes place.
You know, when I came out here to Los Angeles and I started, you know, performing, you know, I had a contract dispute. And in that contract dispute on Real People, I was asking to be paid in year 3 what my white counterparts were being paid in year 1. And they didn't want to do that. And, you know, I wasn't on most of season 3, I think it was, because of that. And we ended up working things out for season 4 and season 5. But having someone tell me and my mom what I was worth, and was a very painful experience. And as a matter of fact, I was fired. I was fired for that period of time. And I had simply asked, can I get what my white counterparts got in year 1? Can I get that in year 3? And I realized at that moment that it's not show business, it's business show. And I made it a point to learn the business. Anyone can have an idea. Ideas are a dime a dozen. Anybody can, you know, have those ideas and think, oh my God, this is the greatest thing ever. But it's not just the idea. Ideas are simple and they're not hard to come up with. It's execution and distribution and monetization of that idea. And that's what I said is you have to now master that. It's not show business, it's business show. And I made it a point to learn the business. And if you learn the business, you can put as many shows as you want on the air. And that's what I did. And that's when I went to my first NATPE, which is a television convention for people who own and operate television stations. And this will be my 40th, if we have it. I've gone 39 consecutive years since 1981. And I've made it a point to get to know everybody who owns and operates a television station in this country, and all the advertising agencies and the ad budgets and advertisers and, you know, production people. And I just started putting shows on the air. And I put another. Next thing you know, I have over 65 television shows on the air and one of the largest privately held television libraries in the world. Thousands of hours. And I just never stopped smiling and dialing and smiling. And if I wanted to, I could have 500 shows on the air because I have studied business show, not show business. And if you don't study the business, then you will be temporary hired help. You will be flavor of the week, flavor of the month, and, you know, they will, you know, they always say, get me, you know, a hot star come along and they'll say, you know, who is that hot star? And then they'll say, get me that hot star. And then they'll say, you know, get me, you know, the next young version of that hot star. And then they'll say, who was that hot star? So they just kind of go through that evolution of who are they to who are they again. So I think it's important to really study the business. And I was really fortunate to do that. And that's what positioned me for to go on to other things.
Was that the genesis of creating entertainment studios? You have 10 independent channels within
Yeah.
entertainment studios. Is that correct?
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yes. Now it's Allen Media Group. So Allen Media Group, I started from my dining room table in summer of '93, and I started, calling and all of these television stations and putting on a special, and then that special became a once a week show. And I literally called all 1,300 commercial television stations and asked them to carry my once a week 1 hour show for free. Entertainers with Byron Allen, where I'm interviewing 7 movie stars talking about their latest movies. And I said, listen to the TV stations. There's 14 minutes of commercial time. I would like for you to keep 7 minutes, sell your 7 minutes to local advertisers, local car dealers, banks, supermarkets, and I will sell my 7 minutes to national advertisers. And so it's a barter arrangement. And literally, I got about 50 no's from every television station. And after about 40 or 50,000 no's, I was able to squeeze out 150 yeses. And I had a TV station in about 150 markets that said yes. And that was my lineup. And that took me a year, and from sun up to sundown to do that. And that I literally wore holes in my dining room chairs to get that done. And my home went in and out of foreclosure probably 14 times over a 5-year period. There were days I didn't eat. There were days I was calling people from a payphone because they turned my phone off. And I just kept smiling and dialing. And finally, I sat down with all the heads of the movie studios. And I said, listen, you guys are spending 200 to 600 million a year each promoting these movies, buying commercials, go see this movie, go see this movie. And I said, I'm having your movie stars on and I'm running clips and movie trailers from your movies. I'm basically a 1 hour commercial for you to tell people to go to your movies. Why don't you spend a little bit of money on me out of your 200 to 600 million a year in ad expenditures so I can be there to support you? Well, I ended up signing up all the movie studios. And once I solidified the movie industry, I was able to go on the road and eat regularly and pay my phone bill. And I just went industry by industry. And I went and I sat down with, the fast food companies and soft drinks and packaged goods and automotive, pharmaceuticals. And I would sit down with, board members or chief marketing officers, chairmen, CEOs, whoever would talk to me, the receptionist. And I was able to sign up more industries and more advertisers. And once I was able to solidify, relationships with quite a few advertisers, I then kept smiling and dialing and adding another show, and more advertisers, and another show and more advertisers. And I quickly learned the value of content. And I thought, I'm going to take all the athletes that I've interviewed, and I'm gonna separate them from the movie stars and the TV stars, and just do a 1 hour special interviewing the athletes. And I had some terrific interviews with athletes. So I called up the TV stations and I said, I have a 1 hour special, just athletes. And it's called The American Athlete is the name of the special. And my interviews are with Michael Jordan, Steve Young, Hakeem Olajuwon, Oscar De La Hoya, Penny Hardaway, Dennis Rodman, Grant Hill, Riddick Bowe. And, that's the special. And I ended up clearing every market in the United States of America, like 212 markets. And I ended up selling my advertising time in that special, which was sitting on the shelf. Those interviews were collecting dust on the shelf. And I was able to put that special together for less than $20,000 because it was just a matter of editing and putting it on a satellite to get to the TV stations. I ended up selling the ad time in that special, which cost 20 grand, for over $1 million. And when I did that, I was like, okay, I was able to get off my dining room table, open offices, hire a staff, and start to build out the company. And I just never stopped smiling and dialing. I read in the New York Times that, that the Verizon was going to invest $23 billion in building out fiber to the home. And they were going to offer 150 HD channels to the public. And when I read that, I went to them and I said, hey, Verizon, I would like to offer you 10 24-hour networks. I see you're going to offer 150 of them. I'd like to offer you 10 of them. And they said, listen, we're not going to give you 10 networks. We're going to give you 6 networks. And with the stroke of a pen, we made history and launched 6 24-hour HD networks. And because I did that, I was in business with a company that satellites 24-hour networks, and they do it for quite a few people. And the guy who runs the company, he came to me, he said, he was out of Atlanta. He said, can we have dinner? And I said, sure. So we're sitting at dinner one night, and he says to me, you know, you don't know this, but before I was the chairman and CEO of this company that satellites 24-hour cable networks, including mine, he said, and by the way, I ended up launching a 7th network with Verizon, which was our 24-hour court network. So I had 7 networks at the time. And he came to me and he said, before I was running this satellite company to deliver 24-hour cable networks like yours, he goes, I used to be the chief operating officer of the Weather Channel. And he said, I know you're not thinking about the Weather Channel because you're here in Los Angeles and it's always 80 degrees and sunny. And he goes, but the Weather Channel is a great business. And he goes, the way you think, the way you operate, he goes, you really approach things differently. You look at things in a unique way. And he goes, you're an owner operator, which is rare in this business. And he said, you should buy the Weather Channel. You would do a great job running that and owning that. And I thought, wow, you know what? I don't think about the Weather Channel. And I got into it and I checked on it. And I ended up being the winning bid. And buying the Weather Channel, I felt was pivotal. Owning the Weather Channel sent a unique message because it's the first time an African American in this country has owned a mainstream news outlet in America. And then I went on to buy big 4 network affiliates around the country: ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox affiliates. And unfortunately, I'm the only African American to own those. But also, I wanted to send that same message that we're producing national news and local news, and we're doing it on a very decent sized scale.
Byron, let me ask you, because this has been fascinating, but I want to just pivot a little bit because this success that you've been able to achieve over these past, especially these past 10 to 15 years, has not gone without struggle. And when I say without struggle, I don't mean struggle like you had to struggle before to get something to eat and a place to sleep, but I mean struggling getting what we're due. You won, but you had to do it sometimes by having to take being litigious. And nothing wrong with that, but that's the only way sometimes you can get people's attention, right? The only way you can get corporate America to be held accountable to what we as African Americans represent to this country, represent to their bottom line, what have you. Talk about that as a strategy in terms of how there was a struggle, talk about that briefly, but more importantly, how you use the legal system to be able to achieve, and are still doing it to this day.
Yeah, listen, first of all, I have to tell you, it's so wonderful to see your mom and dad behind you, because I have such fond memories of your dad and Black Enterprise and how you inspired me. That magazine was it is a absolute gift. It is a treasure, especially in this country and especially in Black America. I cannot tell you how much I love you, your family, and appreciate you and your family. And I appreciate Black Enterprise and how special you are to our community and help me shape how I saw myself in this world. Now, the thing I will say about, my position in this world is, every day I say, thank God I'm Black. Thank God I'm Black. I mean, thank God I'm Black, because I watch so many of my white counterparts get things very easy. And they were, when the .com came along, they were like, people were writing them checks off of napkins. And I own my company 100%, not because I wanted to. I own my company 100% today because I'm Black. No one ever offered me a penny. No one believed in me. No one wanted to invest in me. Almost the first 15, 20 years of my existence, I couldn't even get a bank loan with the greatest receivables ever. I had to go to a factor. A factor is somebody, because I would say to them, so-and-so is advertising with me. Johnson & Johnson, whoever, Procter & Gamble, they're advertising with me, but I can't wait 120, 150 days to be paid. And I would factor that receivable and factors would charge me 26, 27% interest. The fact that I survived predatory lending of 26, 27% interest is a miracle in itself. And it made me work 100 times harder just to stay afloat. I didn't have this is a big problem in the African-American community for African-American entrepreneurs. We don't have access to capital that's not predatory. So I had to build it brick by brick, and I had to finance it myself. And I watched as my white counterparts get capital easily. They didn't understand. They're like, how come you don't? And I'm like, hey. And then they would even take me to some of their investors and their banks, and they would say, this is Byron Allen. I've learned half of what I know, I learned from him. And you should do business with him. And their bank wasn't feeling it. And they couldn't understand why their bank wasn't feeling it when I was doing better than them. And I just said, don't worry about it. We'll catch up on that another time. And so when things got a little tough for them, and I always say it's like going to the gym. If one guy goes to the gym and he has to only bench press 50 pounds, and the other guy has to go to the gym and bench press 500 pounds, we know who's going to be stronger, have a much more solid foundation, and last forever. So as things got rough, I saw my white counterparts in the .com go down like that. They went down because they didn't get round 3, round 4, and round 5 of funding. I never depended on funding because I was funding myself. And when they were falling, I was ascending, and I just kept going up because I had built the foundation myself, and I was going straight up into the sky like a rocket. That resistance was an essential recipe in my success. I needed that resistance. It forced me to develop unbelievable skills to grow my business. So when I got into a certain level of distribution, at a certain point, I realized there was a bit of a ceiling, and I couldn't get the distribution I felt we deserved, especially with our general market cable networks. And the Obama administration came to me and asked me, the cable industry, do you think that you think these are, this is a fair industry? And I said, the answer is not no, it's hell no. They're not. I said, they're spending 70 billion a year, 70 billion a year licensing cable networks, and Negroes get zero. And I said, I don't understand how you can hook up all these Black neighborhoods, and you can't be the #1 cable operator in America without hooking up all the Black neighborhoods, and then we don't get any money. So they said, well, we hear that, but everybody's afraid to speak up. And I said, I'm not afraid to speak up. I'm a comedian. We're unfiltered. That's what we do. We go on stage every night and we speak up and we tell the truth, and we hopefully make you laugh and along the way. I said, I will deal with it. And what I did is I used the Civil Rights Act of 1866, Section 1981. This was the very first Civil Rights Act in America. It was put on the books in the year of 1866 to protect the newly freed slaves, to make sure we had a pathway to economic inclusion. Some historians believe we never got the 40 acres and a mule because we got this law. And so I used it. And I have to tell you, I filed $40 billion worth of lawsuits. And those $40 billion worth of lawsuits, AT&T was resolved, settled. Comcast was settled. I mean, it's public. I sued AT&T for $10 billion. That was settled. I sued Comcast for $20 billion. That was settled. I sued Charter for $10 billion. And that one has not been settled. But we made history. The judge here in Los Angeles said that $10 billion lawsuit can go forward. Now that's history, because this is an African-American owned company that is suing Charter for racial discrimination in contracting, not doing business with Black people in a significant way. And the lawsuit's going forward because they couldn't get it dismissed. That's a big deal. One of the other lawsuits went all the way to the Supreme Court, not to look at my case. It was to look at the Civil Rights Act of 1866. And what they did there is they voted 9-0 against us. And what they said is, in order for Butch and Byron to use this law, or any minority to use this law, the Civil Rights Act of 1866, we have to go to the higher standard, the but-for standard. And that is, we have to prove 100% that we were discriminated against because we're Black. As opposed to the motivating factor. If 30% of the reason they didn't do business with us because we're Black, that's not enough. 60% isn't enough. 70, 80% isn't enough. They said, Black people, you need to prove 100% they didn't do business with you is because you're Black. I mean, they almost basically have to say, I am not doing business with you because you are a nigger. Am I clear? That's basically what they have to say in order to use the law. So they've created the standard to be so high that we can't use it, and that wasn't the intent. So what I'm doing now is I'm working with members of Congress, and I'm investing quite a bit of capital with members of Congress and lawyers to overturn the Supreme Court decision and write the language in a way that it is the lower standard, the motivating factor. So I will tell you that the greatest trade deficit in America is the trade deficit between corporate America and Black America. And that trade deficit has manifested itself into lack of real wealth in our communities. Where Black people, we have good cash flow, white people have wealth. You know, Black people have, you know, good cash flow, make 100, make 50, 100 million a year, 200 million a year for a period of time. But wealth is when you have 3-4 billion and it's bringing in 500 million a year from your investments. That's the difference between cash flow, a good run in your life of making some money, versus wealth, where you have assets that are bringing in enormous amount of capital. I always tell young kids, pimp your money, don't let your money pimp you. And if you're out there trying to, you know, make money, you're getting pimped by money. But if you are investing money and that money is bringing back 100, 200, 300 million a year, now you're doing it right. That's wealth. Pimp your money, don't let your money pimp you. So when I decided to file these lawsuits, I decided to file these lawsuits because it was something that Coretta Scott King had said to me years ago. I had bought the rights to her story. I wanted to look at Martin Luther King through her eyes. And because I said no one knew Martin Luther King better than her. And excuse me. And she said to me, Coretta said to me, Byron, as Black people, we had 4 major challenges. Number 1, end slavery. Number 2, end Jim Crow, which I think was more damaging than slavery, because that's when they started hunting us and killing us and lynching us and incarcerating us and just committing genocide against us. And then she said, number 3, achieve civil rights. And then she choked up and she said, number 4, the real reason they killed Martin, achieve economic inclusion. And it was, I had like, wow. And she said, they didn't kill him because of the I Have a Dream speech. She said, we had already achieved civil rights by the time they killed him. She said, it was the other America, that speech, the speech he gave at Stanford University, the other America, where he said and he was the great prophet. He said, there are 2 Americas. One America has access to opportunity, jobs, mentorship, education, capital that's not predatory. The other America doesn't. 2 Americas will not survive. We need 1 America. And he was dealing with the 4th and final chapter, economic inclusion, education, access to capital, healthcare for all. And he was doing the Poor People's March. He was going to deliver 500,000 poor people to the nation's capital, mainly poor white people. That's why they killed him. And I said to her, this is the 4th and final chapter. What you and Martin did is extraordinary. Don't worry about it. We will deal with the 4th and final chapter. And she said to me, they will come after you. And I said, I understand, but they've been coming after me since my Black ass was born. So, you know, I've decided I'm gonna die on my feet, not my knees. And I've burnt my knee pads. So I'm good. But we're gonna deal with the 4th and final chapter. This is no longer an ask. This is a take. I'm not asking for a seat at the table. I'm taking one. And before you blink, I'm gonna own the table and the house and the estate and everything you can see. This is the fourth and final chapter. That's what we're doing. And by the way, this is something that I've already told the advertising community. Madison Avenue, you were part of our conference, and thank you. I told the advertising community, you're racist. You're extremely racist. I go to your ad agencies and you have nothing but white kids there who don't know anything about Black History Month or Black Music Month. I said, you guys are spending $150 billion a year and you don't spend any money with Black-owned media. And that's why Black-owned media doesn't exist, barely exists, and it's extinct. And I need all of you to commit 2% of your ad budget to Black-owned media. And if you don't commit 2% of your ad budgets to Black-owned media, I am going to take legal action and start suing you. What happens, especially with Black people, they put those 4 Ds on us. First, they dismiss us. Oh, you just, come on, stop all that. Then when you get a little upset about it, then they discredit you, that second D. And then when you get really upset because they're dismissing you and they're discrediting you, then they move on to that third D, they demonize you. And they need to get to that third D, that demonizing D, because they want to move on to that fourth D, and they have to demonize you to be in check with their so-called Christian selves. They have to demonize you so they get to that fourth D, destroy you. And I thought, well, the best way to work through that matrix is through lawsuits. And if I file lawsuits, you can't dismiss me. Here's a $20 billion lawsuit. You can't discredit me. I'm still a smiling, happy Negro. And I'm not, you can't, classify me as the angry Negro. And you can't demonize me. I'm using your process. I'm using your legal system. And you can't destroy me, because even if you destroy me, the lawsuit will live on. So that is for wealthy white America, for wealthy white corporate America. The kryptonite is litigation. And I felt like the only way to get around that matrix of the 4 Ds, and after I decoded what was happening, what was I experiencing, what was I witnessing? I was witnessing and experiencing the 4 Ds. I said, now how do I get around it? And I said, litigation. So you start staffing up. And I started hiring lawyers, litigators who work full time for me. So I built a law firm inside my company. And I said, and here's who we go after. And we stay with them. Usually Black people have to go to the Supreme Court to get white people off our asses. This is the first time white people had to go to the Supreme Court to get a Negro off their asses. So after 400 years and me investing millions and millions of dollars in time and energy, we were able to bring it to a resolution. And that was the key. So I think litigation is the best pathway. And I think if Black America takes a back seat and looks at it, takes a step back and look at it, Black America say, well, white corporate America is not doing business with us anywhere.
Byron Allen, thank you very much for your open and candid conversation with us today. You're the epitome of an entrepreneur with grit, who's done it from the bottom up and continue to thrive, continue to press and hold corporate America accountable. We'll be with you every step of the way. And I really appreciate you sharing with everyone the insights on what it takes to become a successful entrepreneur, regardless of your skin color, regardless of your gender, regardless of anything. What it takes is grit and determination, and you have that.
Thank
you. The greatest level. So thanks again, Byron.
Thank you, my brother.
It's day 2 and the BE Entrepreneur Summit is off and running with that extraordinary opening session. And a special thanks to Butch Graves and Byron Allen. I'm Ramon Ray, founder of smarthustle.com. Honored to be your MC for day 2 of the 2020 Entrepreneur Summit. Yesterday was all about making connections. Today we thrive. Prepare for a fresh slate of sessions and workshops that build on yesterday's work. The Business Opportunity Showcase is now open. Our sponsors and small business exhibitors have a lot to offer, so be sure to stop by to make direct connections with sponsors and small businesses via video and live chats. And 2, gather the resources and white papers to help you get ahead in your backpack, and so much more. In each session, you will have a chance to connect with some of our dynamic speakers who will answer your questions in the live Q&A chat. Take advantage of our networking opportunities and connect with fellow attendees in the lounge. Are you scoring on the leaderboard? There are great prizes at stake, so keep competing and check your status. Don't forget to use the hashtag BEsummit. We're almost at the finish line. Join us for great music and networking with DJ King Ivan, sponsored by Remy Martin.